Welcome to this meeting of the Council. I am Councillor Daniel Pratt, Chair of Mid-Suffolk District Council, and I will be chairing the meeting today. May I first of all remind you of some of the domestic arrangements. Toilets are situated outside the meeting room, opposite the stairs. Water is also available in the breakout area outside the meeting room. If the fire alarm should sound, please leave the meeting room by following the fire exit signs. Do not re-enter the building until you are told it is safe to do so. Please switch off all mobile phones or turn them to silent. I would like to remind everyone present in this meeting that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and press are not lawfully excluded. Can I remind members to speak clearly into the microphones and to not put their papers over the microphones? Can I move to the agenda, please? Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Haddingham, Councillor Marriott and Councillor Eburn.
Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interests by councillors. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. For the avoidance of doubt, the Monitor Officer has granted dispensation to all councillors of pensionable age in relation to the motion on notice.
Thank you. Item 3, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of September 2024 for accuracy only. Are there any issues with the accuracy? No? Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mellon, could I have a seconder, please? Not a second. Councillor Carter, thank you. We will do this by a show of hands vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Okay. Item 4, Chair's announcements. I will refer you to paper MC 2425 for noting. I'd like to welcome Councillor Richardson to the Chamber as the first meeting he has attended. I also wanted to just have a quick reflection on some of the events that I have attended. The weekend of Remembrance and Armistice Days is perhaps one of the key events of the year in the civic calendar in our district and across the country. I was pleased that the Vice Chair and myself were able to attend events in Stowmarket, Eye and Bury St Edmunds. We remembered those who fought and lost their lives or returned home with severe injuries in the two major wars of the last century. Today we also remember those who are part of the civil service, whether it be the police, people who work on the fronts of our NHS service, who occasionally or frequently even put their lives at risk in order to protect our lives and our well-being. We also remember those who have fought in wars since, of course, as well. Remembrance Weekend is really not about glorifying war. It's actually a moment to feel empathy for those who are impacted by it as well. We also recognise the pain and emptiness felt by mothers who have lost their children in combat and sort of, acknowledge the loss and destruction wrought upon communities and the places that they called home. We also now perhaps also acknowledge those who faced execution for desertion at war and those who were persecuted for refusing not to go to war, whether they were conscientious objectors or did not go for religious or other humanist reasons. And during this time, especially when you sort of look at the news and what's going on around the world at the moment, in this time of reflection that we've had a couple of weeks ago, we inevitably cast our minds to the troubles of the present day as well. Most wars in modern times really rarely end conclusively. Most of the time they are paused, they end in a stalemate situation or with ongoing historical grievances that are left without clear resolutions. The war in Ukraine has sadly surpassed its 1,000th day and has cost hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilian lives on both sides. Difficult to get an exact number because it's hard to verify through the various sources. As the Gaza conflict continues to escalate, over 1,100 Israeli and nearly 44,000 Palestinian lives have been lost. Unfortunately, the rhetoric of aggression is worsening in both conflicts, but what we really need to do as a global community, which we are all a part of, is reflect on the fact that peace is rarely won through bloodshed and violence, but through diplomacy and negotiation, and strengthening our commitments to our common causes of democracy and peace, and to advance global solidarity and human rights. Thank you. Item 5, Leaders' Announcements. I would like to invite Councillor Mellon to present his update, please.
Thank you, Chair. The announcements are tabled, but I will just read them out. 2 weeks ago, we held our Innovation Awards at all manner of events in Henley, celebrating some fantastic businesses and entrepreneurs. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate all the winners and finalists. 9 awards were handed out on the night to those who are striving to use unique and creative approaches to deliver their products and services. We hold these awards jointly with our Baber District Council colleagues, and I'm delighted we had some exceptional local winners. And these included the overall winner on the night, the Stowmarket-based IE Music. This business has greatly enhanced musical education in schools and given young people the freedom to carve out careers in the music industry. So well done to IE Music and the other businesses nominated. Also, can I thank our officers for their detailed planning and work, which delivered an excellent event. Next, the Schools Green Skills Summit. I was delighted to attend this event along with several other members last week. And it was attended by over 90 Year 8 and 9 students. The students debated real-world climate change challenges, that's a bit of a mouthful, and emulated real-life negotiations as world leaders have been doing at COP29. It was really great to see young people so engaged in this subject, and I hope they left what was an excellent event feeling informed and inspired. And again, I'm grateful to officers for their efforts in delivering this event. Now, next week, I, along with Baber's leader and officers, will be attending a District Councils Network event in London, celebrating 50 years since the formation of District Councils, including this one in 1974. And at this event, we will be showcasing the work we are doing to improve our housing provision. And then devolution and reform. In the recent budget, it became clear that the government is looking for simpler structures in local government alongside their intentions for devolution. We are expecting more detail on these proposals, which I hope will come when the white paper is published, possibly as soon as next week. And then finally, many members and officers have asked me about Councillor Eburn and have asked me to pass on their best wishes to her. Since Rachel is going to be away for an extended period, I've appointed Councillor Janet Pearson as lead member for finance. I was able to see Rachel briefly last week. She's continuing treatment and hopes to be back after Christmas. There is a card which I hope all members and officers here will sign, sending our best wishes. And I'm sure the whole council will join with me in sending her our very best wishes.
Thank you, Councillor Mellon. Are there any points for clarification? Yes, Councillor. Sorry.
It's Whitehead.
Whitehead, sorry. Yes.
Yes. Does the administration have any plans locally to celebrate Mid Suffolk's 50th birthday?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure that we have put anything in train, but perhaps we should. Thanks for raising that idea. I'll take it up with officers.
Thank you. So I would like to move on to the next item, so item 6, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with council procedure rules.
None received.
Thank you. Item 7, questions by the public in accordance with council procedure rules.
None received, Chair.
Item 8, questions by councillors in accordance with councillor procedure rules. I refer you to the questions in the tabled papers. For question 1, I would now like to invite Councillor Whitehead to ask his question, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Cabinet has recently agreed its fees and charges for next year. Both the fees and charges schedule as agreed and the equivalent schedule for this present year show that 2024-25 charges for litter bin emptying and dog waste bin emptying as being £49 and no pence and £57 and no pence respectively. However, invoices to 2 parish councils in my ward for the current year both show unit charge billings as £49.66 for the litter bins and £58.16 for dog bins. So my question is, how many towns and parishes are affected by this overcharging, and what cost-effective solution is proposed to rectify the situation? Thank you.
Invite Councillor Winch to respond.
I'd like to thank Councillor Whitehead for this question, and I'd like to take this opportunity to recognise his very keen eye for details on numbers. So the background of this is that last year Public Realm conducted a process to try and get our charges more in line with costs, and they came up with a figure of £49.66 for litter bins and £58.16 for dog bins. And they sent out correspondence to all the parish councils to try and give them early warning of what was likely to happen. After that happened, Cabinet made the decision to set the charges at £49 for litter bins and £57 for dog bins. Unfortunately, when the invoice was sent out, they went out with the original letter to parish councils. So effectively, all parish councils in Mid-Suffolk have been slightly overcharged. Our proposal for this is that in this year's invoices, we will give everybody a credit note to correct what should have happened in the first place. So in the case of Claydon and Whitton parish councils, have 18 litter bins, 66p each overcharged, 10 dog bins, £1.16 each overcharged. They will get a credit of £23.48. Just to reassure everyone, we've already agreed the fees and charges for this year, so this sort of situation won't happen again. And in relation to these 2 particular items, we've increased litter bins by 2% to £50. We've reduced dog bins by 12% to £50. We wanted to have them equalised because it was causing unhelpful debate about should I have litter bins or dog bins. I think with the credit note and our proposed changes to charges, that will be seen as a sensible and reasonable solution by parish councils going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Winch. Councillor Whitehead, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes. Now whether it's maybe better directed perhaps to the leader, but given that Councillor Eburn isn't here, but the fees and charges schedule runs to 18 pages with well over 200 individual listed fees and charges. My question is, are you confident that all these other fees and charges for the current year 24-25 have been correctly invoiced out using the relevant agreed unit prices from the 24-25 fees and charges schedule?
Thank you. Councillor Winch, would you like to respond?
We probably need to 100% check that. We checked out everything around what went to parish councils, but that was a particular circumstance which we don't believe has happened elsewhere, and it didn't happen in Bayborough. We haven't obviously gone down every single line on that paper, checking every single invoice, but I think it's very, very unlikely that would have happened elsewhere because of the particular circumstance in question.
Thank you very much. I would now like to ask Councillor Matheson for his question, to ask his question.
Thank you, Chair. There are now regular reports of local businesses being held back by restrictions on water supply in the north of the district. What are the implications for new and expanding businesses, and why is this happening? And please can you explain what role the district development planning process is playing in this matter? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask or invite Councillor Stringer to respond.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Matheson, for your question. Underground aquifers in Suffolk have been historically depleted, and the Environment Agency has placed restrictions on abstraction licences. This has led not only to new business uses being offered just a domestic scale supply, unless that business, farm, etc., can demonstrate where they're getting their water from for their enterprise, i.e. building new reservoirs, for examples. This council has a number of relevant planning policies relating to water usage in our joint local plan, which is almost a year old, including SB05, SB10 and LP26, in which new development will be expected to comply with which they'll be expected to comply with. Our policies recognise that Mid-Suffolk faces particular challenges around water supply, especially for non-domestic customers in the Hartismere water resource zone. And we've developed, through engagement with water companies and the Environment Agency, we've had detailed evidence. Policy SB08 identifies that councils will work with those relative partners to ensure the provision of essential water supply and water recycling infrastructure, including an upgrade from 2032 to the Hartismere water infrastructure network, which is now understood now to have slipped to 2033. So by 2033, we should have all of the infrastructure in place so that the restrictions in our policies should then be able to be relaxed. With these policies in place, we will expect developers and businesses to address their future water usage so that we can be confident that we're securing sustainable development. But for non-domestic users, our water supply companies have commercial discretion whether to provide a supply, and that's actually not a planning matter we can control. Added to this, water companies have recently sent letters to businesses, even outside of the Hartismere zone, suggesting that they are capping the water use at an average of the last 5 years' consumption for each business. Mid-Suffolk has also met on this front with Small Business Federation, Anglia Water, Essex and Suffolk Water, and others to explore what that letter actually means in practice. And in fact, the water companies have little ability to limit supply to existing businesses. And given that water companies are not allowed to refuse connections to new housing growth, it sets up a complex issue regarding the new government trying to increase housing targets for Mid-Suffolk. But the fact remains, Suffolk is using water at a rate the geology cannot sustain. So Mid-Suffolk has some recently approved planning policies to help address this, which will also obviously continue to work closely with the businesses and farmers to find the solutions until the infrastructure investments finally catch up. I hope that's helpful, Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Councillor Stringer. Councillor Matheson, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
That answer is very clear. Thank you, Chair, and no supplementary.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Councillor Penny to ask his question.
Thank you, Chair. Our rural farmers have been hit by intense uncertainty following the previous and now current government changes to their many support mechanisms. Mid-Suffolk's food industry supports over 25% of our workforce. Added to this, nearly 35% of our farmers are now over 65 years old, many working over the retirement age with only 5% under 35 years. This industry needs support. This new national endeavour has the potential to break our long-standing small farmers who are not equipped like the large industrial-sized farms with financial and tax expertise. The new grant application process is also unclear and difficult to access and requires specialist advice, which is thinly spread nationally. I understand we only have one specialist in the whole of Suffolk. I've been speaking to my local farmers within Mid-Suffolk, and I know our Thriving Communities Cabinet member has as well. We have heard and seen the current conditions and challenges already faced by our farmers with climate change and the long-term effects the supermarkets have on our high-quality small farmer. They are being pushed out of the infrastructure that supported them as it is disappearing. You have seen the news reports over the last few years on our fruit growers, our pig farmers, and the hundreds of miles being travelled just to have food processed because there isn't anywhere in Suffolk. I do not want to buy my food from abroad because it's cheaper for a supermarket to do so. It's more profitable for a company, but it is not fresh. It is forced or over-processed and lacks the vitamins and nutrients a healthy society needs. I want to buy my food as local as possible because it provides us with food security in a very uncertain time. It supports a sector of industry that Mid-Suffolk are skilled in and uses our natural resource in a sustainable way. Better for the planet means better for people. This is now a crucial time in our lives when choosing to support our farmers is choosing to support our food being grown here.
This is questions, not statements. We're hearing a statement. I thought this was questions.
To ensure low-carbon sustainable food is grown in Suffolk and in Mid-Suffolk, as a council we have our part to play through our long-term economic strategy. We can set out our aims and goals. I would like to ask our Cabinet Member for Thriving Communities, are we including specific support for sustaining our food chain in Mid-Suffolk within our economic strategy? And does that mean supporting our farmers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penny. I would like to invite Councillor Davis to respond, please.
Thank you, Dave, for that question. Put very simply, yes is the answer to your question. We are taking to heart our farming industry as part of our strategy. We'll be formally acknowledging our commitment to locally produced food, and we understand our small businesses have barriers to access their consumer markets. We will be aiming to take down those barriers as part of our ambition. Although the strategy is not fully developed, it will be going to Cabinet shortly, and our ambitions within that strategy are for decarbonisation and clean growth, green skills, energy and water reuse and reduction pilots, and in particular to this question, the circular economy, local procurement and local supply chains. It is very important to us.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Penny, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Chair. I was thinking, and to illustrate something we could do on a small scale, would we consider making community-supported agriculture schemes eligible for SIL funding?
Thank you. Councillor Davis, would you like to respond?
That's an excellent idea. It's one that's been brought to my attention before, and we will definitely take that on board when we're reviewing the SIL.
Thank you very much. Now move on to item 9, the annual Treasury Management Reports. I would like to invite Councillor Matheson, Chair of Joint Audit and Standards Committee, to introduce his paper and to move the recommendations in that report. Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Inevitably, with the huge volumes of figures, etc., that comes with Treasury management, there are a couple of corrections that officers will be pleased to tell you about first of all.
Yes, councillors, there's one correction needed to Table 7, headed Treasury Activity Performance. That's on so either on page 39 or 71 of the report, I think, depending on which version you're looking at. If you look on that page, there's a table where there's two tables headed Treasury Activity Performance, and I'm referencing the Mid-Suffolk table. It's come to my attention that the second section of that table, which is headed interest payable, that there was unfortunately a line that has got inadvertently hidden when the table was imported into the into the report. So the line headed total interest payable is correct, but I think when you add up the lines that make up that line, they don't quite add up, and that's because there is a line missing. I think rather than go through the details of the missing line now, I'll ask committee services colleagues to circulate a corrected version of that table so that you're fully sighted on it. Thank you.
March 2024 this year. And so it is the joint Treasury management report, and it covers the out-term position, that's to say what actually happened for the financial year 23-24. It provides details of Treasury management activity and performance during the year and any instances of non-compliance with the Council's Treasury management policy. The economic background is to be found on pages 25 to 28, and the key points to highlight are that UK inflation declined from 8.7 at the start of this financial year, that's to say April 23, from 8.7% to 3.4% inflation at the end of the year. And UK base rate increased from 4.25% at the start of the year to 5.25 at the end. And I think those figures reflect a much greater volatility than we've experienced over most of the previous decade. So that's the context of difficulty for officers to manage. The pages 28 to 30 give an overview of the local context. The headline figures are that the net borrowing requirement is the capital financing requirement in total, 203 million, which is our underlying need to borrow, but we partially meet that through the usable reserves and working capital of 82 million, which is the underlying resources that are available to us for investment purposes. So we have a net borrowing requirement of 120 million at the end of this financial year, 31st of March 24. The net actual borrowing externally ended up at that 105 million at the 31st of March. Now, our borrowings and investments in more detail. Page 31 to 33 is more detail of the Council's long-term and short-term borrowings. Page 34 to 36 is details of the Council's short-term and long-term investments. Particular points to note are the statutory override, which I will explain in a moment, on accounting for gains and losses on pooled funds is currently due to expire on 31st of March 25. And that becomes relevant when we look at the individual pooled funds' actual values on the marketplace at the point in time at the end of the year. The override means we do not have to account for those losses on the year that's just ended, but in the case of the UBS pooled fund, that actually closed its doors and closed its working in September, just gone, and that's left us with a loss, effectively, of about £500,000 to the council compared to the investment that we originally started with. So that's That has to happen because it's a fact, whereas the statutory override lets us keep the position in abeyance so far. Page 37 to 39 provides more details on the council's non-financial investments, which is essentially our trading businesses. And the key point there really is that Mid-Suffolk Growth Limited, that's the housing company, Cabinet has agreed to sell the remaining development land at the former Mid-Suffolk headquarters site at Sneedon Market, and that will be generating a capital receipt for the council. Pages 40 to 43 summarise the performance of the council's investments in pooled funds. The compliance with our policies is indicated across pages 43 to 46, there's a typo there possibly, which show that in most instances we've complied with our policies, but in one instance of non-compliance, this is described on page 44, but it did not expose the council to any significant ongoing risk of financial loss. There is an important change which I think you need to actually understand regarding the housing revenue account. The policy up to now has been to essentially depreciate the housing stock over 30 years of life, but that's not best practice. So page 47 sets out adjustments to that policy which are considered necessary to bring the methodology into line with best practice of 50 years. So council is asked to approve that amendment and to apply it retrospectively to the financial years 2021 up to 2024 inclusive. Finally, there was a number of pages of 49 to 53. Problem? No problem. Pages 49 to 53, which show a range of the prudential indicators and how we have met them. So I'd like to move the various motions that are included, noting this, but also in particular approving the policy change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matheson. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Baker.
I second.
Thank you. We will now move to questions. Councillors may ask as many questions as they wish, however they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question and must not be for a personal or a commercial nature. Would anybody like to ask a question? Councillor Hicks.
Just trying to find the page. There are a couple of examples in here, one with Baber and one with us, where there were financial errors, where money was put in the wrong account. It was only overnight and then it was rectified the next day. And the ceiling of investment was that was limit, which above the limit that's permitted. How can we be sure that the team is managing that to stop it happening again?
Councillor Matheson.
Thank you. Well, we are retrospectively clearly monitoring when this does happen, and that's the only instance in the year, so that's relatively encouraging. And I think beyond that, I think we can all see that sometimes money arrives late in the day and it's too late to actually deploy it to best, within our policies of limits of how many million we should put to whichever bank and so on. So that's, I don't know whether the officers want to add to that, or is that sufficient?
Councillor Alistair Greer, Senior Business Partner, Capital and Treasury. Would you like to answer? Follow up?
Yes, as the councillor correctly puts it, there are instances when, rare instances when money will just arrive just after the cut-off time, to invest that money out. So, I mean that's just a natural circumstance of the Treasury management activity. But I mean, in terms of operational procedures, I mean we've strengthened our procedures. So as the team leader, I monitor the balances at the end of each day. So I can assure members that there are procedures in place to ensure that we don't breach our the limits that we put in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. Is it appropriate for a report covering the period ending the 31st of March 2024 to make reference to a meeting held on the 29th of April 2024? And I refer you to page 24 of the report, paragraph 11.2. Thank you.
Councillor Matheson, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I'd like the officers to answer that one, please.
Can I invite the officer to speak?
Yes, I think that this is a reference to the ESG working group that met on the met on the 29th of April, which, as you quite rightly point out, is after the date that this report covers. So yes, I take on board that point that sort of ideally we should only be referring in the report. We should only be referring to meetings that take place within the timescale that the report is covering. So yeah, I take on board that was probably a lapse of good practice. I think we just, I mean, I think given that the ESG piece is an important issue for the council, I think it was maybe maybe we were looking, when drafting the report, we were looking to sort of make reference to the work being done. But yeah, I take on board this probably not good practice. So we'll take that on board.
Thank you, Alistair. Any other questions? Councillor Patchett.
Thank you, Chair. So I did have about 7 questions, but I think I've thinned it down to 4 because even I would lose the will to listen to me talk about 7 questions. So I'll just do the pertinent ones. So on page 31, so the borrowing strategy, so we cleared a loan of £7.5 million, which was at a really favourable rate of 0.38. But it looks like in the same period we've taken out a loan at 6.5 million, which is quite a high rate of 4.76. So what was the reasoning for clearing a low one and taking on a high rate one? Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, we have some clarity about that. There were 2 loans from other local authorities were taken out in July 2021, and that time interest rates were historically very low, and those loans matured in July 23 of 2-year loans, and so at that time the interest rates at short term and long term were similar. So the decision was to tie up the situation for a shorter rather than a longer period of time, given that there wasn't any difference at that time in the cost of the borrowing, and so that can then be replaced by a new loan, hopefully at a longer term, when the interest rates have settled down more.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. The officer indicated that the error on table 7 would be corrected by circulating some papers subsequently. But will the actual official website and the database that the public can see, will that too be changed? Or because to go back later, say next year, it would be good to have the correct figures on there.
Councillor Matheson.
Well, as the problem has recurred in the next paper we're going to look at for the next half year, clearly officers will be very keen to remove the mistake, because obviously it's the same template spreadsheet that's being used. So I think we can be reassured that will be happening all right.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Patchett?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I've still got 3 more, if I can. So I noticed we've got the valuation of all of our investments in the report, except for SIFCO. So is there a reason why we haven't got SIFCO's valuation in this report? And if we can, what was it at the sort of date of the report, please?
Thank you. Councillor Matheson.
Yes, that is indeed an interesting question. I think I'll definitely ask the officers to pick that one apart. There's probably been negotiations with the external auditors about that, or there soon will be. Over to you.
So SIFCO is not the same as our other investments, so it's not on the stock exchange, it's not one of those type investments. So we have tried to show what the loans are to the company, which is effectively what they are. So they're shown on the table on page 30, I'm trying to just scroll down to the page, page 36 I think that is, that just shows the loans. So they are different to the other Schroders investment and the 91, so that's what.
Councillor Patchett, would you mind condensing those 2 down into
one. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So yeah, perhaps the SIFCO valuation was too scary to show. So we've got a money market fund, which was stood at 5 million, and it was performing quite well at 5.22%. But we took 1.5 million out of it. So was there a reason why we took money out of one of our best performing investments? And also the Public Works Loan Board rate has been reduced to 0.4 so that councils can take advantage of this lower rate. So are we refinancing our Public Works Loan Board rates to take advantage of this lower rate? Thank you.
Councillor Matheson,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, do you want me to...
Yeah, that's definitely one I'd like to pass over to the officers. Actually, their detailed reasoning will be forthcoming.
So with the money market funds, we tend to use those as we need to for cash flow purposes. So there would have been a very good reason why we needed that money back to pay back out for something else. So they're kind of on a day-to-day basis, shorter-term investments rather than a longer-term investment. And the second question, so at the moment we are doing quite a lot of short-term borrowing because the rates are so high, and even with that certainty rate for the PWLB loans, it's still quite expensive to take long-term borrowing. So we're continually having that dialogue with Arlene Close about when is the optimum time to lock us into some long-term borrowing when the rates come down, if they do come down. So we're certainly keeping that under review.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Any further questions? No? Oh, Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got a couple of 3 questions, I think, which I'd like some clarification on, if possible. Page 45, we've chosen to give ourselves a credit score of 4.89 against a target of 7. And I think these are related, but you can correct me. On the risk management, paper 2, page 58, we've got two risks. Councils may expose themselves to financial risk, and highly probable. Councils may face significant increases in borrowing costs. Are we confident that we've got sufficient mitigation measures in place to sort of, A, reduce the probability of these two things happening, and hopefully improve our credit score in future?
Thank you, Councillor Matheson.
Yes, I think it's great that someone's actually looking at the risk registers and the risks that are presented on these papers. I'm not going to attempt to answer the questions though, but just to say that I'd encourage all members to look more at our risk registers than we do currently. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, with the credit scores, so just to clarify that it works inversely there. So the lower the score, the lower the risk. So with a score of opposite 4.89, we're below our risk target, which is obviously where we want to be. I mean, I would say as a general comment, both with our borrowings and our investments, I mean, we very much use what I would call plain vanilla borrowing and investment instruments. So investments we're investing with other local authorities or with other money markets having a AAA score. Borrowings, we're borrowing short term from other local authorities who are or from the Public Works Loans Board, which is effectively from the is borrowing from the government. So we're certainly not like Thurrock or some of these other councils that have maybe taken more risks than as a council we would be comfortable with. I can assure members that our both our borrowing approach and our investment approach is is very cautious. It's very prudent. We take advice from our Treasury advisors, so you can be assured that we are cautious and prudent. But I mean, if you want to have a conversation with me, after the meeting, just if you want any further assurance, I'm happy to do that. But just as a general statement, we are cautious. We are prudent. We don't expose the council to unnecessary or undue risks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Councillor Warboys, did you have any further questions?
No, I think I will take Mr. Greer's offer up, so I can
take the question outside the meeting.
Take a question outside the meeting.
Councillor Hicks.
I did read in the LGC that 24 councils are being sued by Thurrock in terms of Treasury management. Is Mid Suffolk one of those? No. Thank you.
No, we're not. No.
Okay. So if we've finished the questions now, I would like to move to the debate. Councillors will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Would anybody like to comment? Councillor Baker?
Thank you, Chair. It's really to Alistair and to Melissa. It's really about this staff cover.
Sorry, Councillor Baker, is this a question? We've finished questions now. If you would like.
It's about debate, really. It's just some comments, really, about the staff cover, absences, business continuity, that sort of thing. So, obviously, talking about team leader coverage, that the team leader will check it, that you'll check it at the end of the day. I think what I'd like to see, be developed over time is a really strict business continuity staff absence management procedure where this Treasury management can be dealt with. It's really high risk, you know how busy it is. One of the things I'm finding with a lot of the district council sort of departments is your ability to deliver services are limited because of staff cover, that sort of thing, succession planning, all of that. And I really feel that there isn't enough of a robust system in place to cover on the financial aspects. So that there's some of my sort of concerns really that I'd like to bring forward.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Would anybody else like to comment? Councillor Winch.
Yeah, I mean, the Treasury management function is obviously really key to the Council. And I'd really like to thank the officers who've worked so thoroughly on this, so thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Audit and Standards for overseeing the process. I know that Councillor Matheson is very aware that this is a very opaque subject for a lot of people in the chamber, including myself in some areas. And there's three things that strike me reading the report that I think might be useful, and Audit and Standards consider it however they want. I think it'd be useful to have some kind of summary in the report, so that when you come to it, you get pointed to what's happened with the debt over time, what are the major things that have happened, what are the major risks, so that you don't have to wade through it. You've got the pointers in the detail. I heard what's being said about we are cautious and prudent, and that's what I believe, but can we see a little bit of benchmarking in the report so that we have some quantification of that and we know where we stand in relation to other councils? The other one is a little bit more specific. This policy on apportioning interest on internal borrowing and investments between the HRA and the General Fund sounds a very dry subject, something that alarms me because of the state of our HRA, and the implication of this policy is not good for our HRA because it's more interest loading onto the HRA. So obviously I'm in favour of the change here because we're trying to conform to best practice, which we hadn't been following before. But I think it would be useful if we have a policy change that is actually quite significant, by which I mean it has hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of impact, that we have an appendix which has a bit of a worked example as to what this means, and at least a couple of sentences that says, in the real world, the impact of this is going to be A, B and C. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Winch. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Okay, I will now then ask the acting head of... Oh, sorry, James. Sorry, Councillor Patchett.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
So, Schroeder, UBS, CIFCO, 91 Diversified, they've all got something in common, which is they are all worth less than the money we put into them. We are not hedge fund managers, we are not property tycoons, we are custodians of public funds. And we have a responsibility to be responsible and prudent with that money. And I think some of the investments that we've had from the past are not performing. We are clearing loans at low rates and getting loans at higher rates. We're keeping hold of bad investments and we're taking money out of our performing investments. Thurrock's going under, or gone under. Birmingham and a whole list of others have gone under, all through bad investments. And the Treasury report is not bright reading. It's not great reading. I think it's quite miserable. And I think going forward, this administration should stop our investments in property. And I don't think the advice we're getting is brilliant because of the position we're in. We are custodians of public funds and we should be responsible for those funds. And I from reading this report, from a lot of investments that were done long before sort of this administration, I don't think they're prudent investments. They haven't paid off. They're underperforming. And I don't think that's where we should be putting our money in the future. So hopefully going forward, we have a lot more sensible investments.
Thank you, Councillor Patchett. Points very well made. I do believe that a lot of the investments made through this council are risk assessed. Would anybody like to come back on that point at all and make any counter arguments? Councillor Matheson?
Yes, I mean, it's certainly a fair point that the various investments that related directly or indirectly to property are not doing well. When this administration took over, I particularly discussed those problems with Councillor Eburn, and you know, the conclusion was clear that it would be wrong to wade into selling them at considerable losses, but that we should watch for opportunities and collect the income from them meanwhile. And I think in terms of Sifco, it's certainly the case that at Baber District, and we are 50% partners with them in the Sifco business, they need the income from it more than this council does. So we are also beholden to reach agreement with them before we dispose of anything as well. So I think that's a little bit of context for members to put alongside the fair points that some of these investments weren't the best, and fortunately we haven't invested on a scale which would bring the council finances into to hit the rock, so to speak, as Thurrock and others have done. So I think that's the context. So I'll encourage members to vote to where are we? Note the Treasury activity, and note that it was in accordance with prudential indicators, and adopt the proposed amendment to policy regarding the Housing Revenue Fund account. That's page, whatever it is, no, that's the wrong papers.
Councillor Matheson, I've understood that you've just summed up there as well as answered Councillor Patchett's comment.
Yes,
really.
I think I have.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for everyone who... Oh, Councillor Hicks, you wanted to make a comment. Please go ahead. Can we do it after sundown? Yes, is that fine? Okay, yes, please, go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just really want to follow on the point that's been made earlier. Obviously, the investments in, I mean, we've invested again for another year in Schroeder's Income Maximiser Fund. Obviously, that's a fund that invests in Shell, which obviously we discussed last year, so I won't cover that. But these are short-term funds. You can move the money from a share tomorrow. And, for a year and a half, you've said you don't like investing in Shell, but you are still investing in Shell. So could I just have confirmation, are you happy to invest in these funds ongoing? And the second question I've got is, you're getting Treasury advice. The Treasury advice that you've had is coming from one company who I don't know, but how do you evaluate whether the information and the advice you're getting is good advice compared to other companies in the marketplace? So is there an ongoing evaluation of the advice you get, or are you in a set contract for a set period of time, going forward?
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Because we're at debate at the moment, I will allow those points to be taken by Councillor Matheson and an answer may be given outside of the chamber, if that's okay. Thank you. No more comments. I would then like to ask the Acting Head of Governance and the Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you. Councillor Morgan, may I take your vote, please? 4. Thank you. Councillor Mansell.
I'm a bit confused because only one line is blue in my document. It seems to have been split into 2 sections, this vote. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, Councillor,
Well,
you're
so are we
absolutely
voting
correct.
just on the first bit?
May I clarify? We are voting, councillors are voting on recommendation 3.1 to 3.4, which is for both councils, and we will then do a separate vote afterwards to just vote for the recommendations which are for this council only.
Apologies.
It's a joint paper.
Thank you for highlighting
Thank
that,
you very much
Councillor.
for querying that, Councillor.
Start the vote straight away afterwards. Thank you. That's why.
Thank you, members. That is 31 votes for, so that's carried, Chair. Members, the second vote is now in progress on your app, and you are voting for recommendation 3.5, which is for Mid-Suffolk District Council only. Councillor Morgan, may I take your vote, please? 4, thank you. Thank you, members. That's 31 votes for. Chair, that's carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, so item 10, we have the half-year report now on the Treasury Management 2024 to 2025. I would like to invite Councillor Matheson, Joint Chair of Joint Audit and Standards Committee, to introduce paper MC 2427 and move the recommendation in the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I said when I introduced the first paper that we were in the process of catching up, and this is the evidence that we are catching up. It's for the half year ended as recently as the 30th of September this year, which is up-to-date reporting, which is great. There's one correction that you might like to make. In Appendix C on page 71 of the papers, the paragraph 2.8, there's a reference to September, the 10th of September. That should be October. So that's just a little slip of the calendar there. Right. This is Joint Treasury Management Report covering the first half of financial year 24-25 up to this September. It provides details for the half year of Treasury management activities and performance and any instances of non-compliance with the Council's Treasury management policy. The economic background is on page 60 of the report, and the key point to highlight again is that the base interest rate was cut from 5.25% to 5% in August this year, and it remains at that level today. The local context is on page 61. That gives us an overview. Table 1, paragraph 3.2, shows the capital finance requirements of each council, well, let's say our council, and the financing of this from external and internal borrowing at the 31st of March, first of all, and these figures will be reset when we produce a 24-25 Treasury outturn report at the end of this year. The headline figures are on table 2, paragraph 3.4, which shows the net borrowing for each council at the 30th of September 2024. Mid-Suffolk's net borrowing was 105.5 million. Now, so perhaps I'll just apologise for saying each council, because of course officers have to deal with 2 councils and our committee has to deal with 2 councils, but I fully recognise that today we are 1 council. So, the borrowing strategy and activities on pages 62 and 63, and that covers our borrowing strategy and activity over that 6-month period. Page 62 provides some general commentary, and page 63 and 64 show the breakdown of the borrowing portfolios and the average interest rates at the mid-year point. Investment activity is on pages 65 to 72, and that covers the Council's short-term and long-term investment activity. Pages 65 and 66 provide a breakdown of the balances and performance of the internally managed funds. That's the day-to-day Treasury management, essentially, the cash flow. Pages 67 to 69 provide a breakdown of the balances and the performance of the externally managed pooled funds. Page 69 reports the impact of the closure of the UBS pooled fund on the 16th of September. The council sustained a one-off cost of approximately £500,000, representing the loss in value of the council's original investment. The net interest received over the lifetime of the investments means that we have managed to achieve a net positive return on those investments. Page 70 to 72 provides details of the council's non-financial investments, which is to say our trading companies. A particular point to mention is that Mid-Suffolk Growth Limited will be repaying its loan of £1.2 million in November, that's to say this month. Not sure it's actually happened, but this month. Cabinet in July this year agreed to sell the remaining development land at Needham headquarters, ex-headquarters site, and that will generate a capital receipt. Compliance with our policies is covered on pages 72 to 75, and that shows the performance against our prudential and Treasury indicators and the compliance with them. The one instance of non-compliance is described on page 75. This is not considered to be material enough to expose the council to any significant risk of financial loss. So that is the introduction. Let's see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Matheson. First, could I have a seconder, please? Second, Councillor Baker.
I second.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move to questions. Would anybody like to ask a question? Councillor Hicks.
I think I asked the questions now that I should have asked.
Okay.
I asked them at the wrong time. So could you just confirm, are you going to continue to invest in the Schroeder Income Maximiser Fund and invest in Shell going forward? And can you just clarify how you evaluate the advice you get? So are you doing a constant review? Is it something that's done every 5 years? Just how often do you do a review of the companies that give you advice?
Councillor Matheson.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's 2 points to in answer to that, really. Firstly, we have had a workshop session, 2 workshop sessions with our Labour colleagues and officers to talk to our Treasury advisor, Arlene Close, about the availability and feasibility of moving our funds, our Treasury funds, from the pooled funds that are containing particularly fossil fuel investments and others that are fall within the general heading of environmental and social and governance issues attached to them. We hoped to have specific proposals to move forward on that in the Treasury strategy for the 25-26 year. And in terms of whether we're getting the best advice, I think the one thing I would say, which is a partial answer to that, although it's still a good question, is that we are currently looking at and expecting to come to council to appoint an independent member of the Audit and Standards Committee, which is good practice and something we haven't previously done. So I would think that that will provide us with a further strand of, we're looking for somebody clearly with relevant experience and knowledge. And so I hope that that will provide us some guidance. But having said that, it's probably, I don't know how many years we've used Arlene Close as advisors. In my memory, it seems to be a lot. And I think there's a general procurement point to be taken there as to whether we should evaluate such advisors every 5 years or whatever we think's, you know, what the best advice is that we should do. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matheson. It's perhaps worth noting that currently 6 councils have already committed to divest fully. Any other questions? Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Do we know when the actual contract with Arling Close expires?
I'll definitely refer that one to Melissa.
Yeah, so I've just looked it up because I thought the question might come up again. So we have extended with Arling Close the contract for another year. So next year, I was just talking to Alistair, he's actually on his work plan to go out to tender for a new or to see what's in the market and see what the best advice will be to come back.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Rather than wait till this time next year, could I ask how the £20 million received in October has been invested in the short term?
Definitely one for the officers there. What have we done with the money?
We've done a mixture of things. So we've used some of the funds to repay maturing short-term loans, thereby reducing our interest payable costs. We've used some of the other funds. We've done a mixture of things. So we initially put them out with DMADF. That's the sort of Treasury, government Treasury. We were getting about sort of 5% on those investments. More recently, we've been lending out some of the funds to other local authorities short term. Yeah, so not Thurrock, not Birmingham, not Croydon, all other reputable local authorities. We're currently getting about for 3 months investments, we're getting a return of about sort of 5.05%, which is a good rate. I think what we're finding. Sorry, I'll sit down in a minute. But there's a scarcity of liquidity there within the local authority into lending market. A lot of authorities are holding on to funds at the moment, so that's pushing up interest rates. So we're kind of sort of we're prudently investing our surplus funds with other local authorities and earning a good rate on those. I think you make a very good point. That I think longer term we need to think maybe of a longer term strategy for investing those funds. But indeed, yeah. But no. Short term we're investing them wisely and. I'd like to think generating a good return, yeah, for the council.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, yes. Thank you. I just wanted to remind members and officers just to be sensitive when making references to other councils, in particular, please. Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. I was just wondering if during the next procurement process with Arling Close, if there is an opportunity to embed a peer review process for them so that we're not in the same situation. So whoever we contract for the next advisor, could we embed a peer review process with another advisor so that we've got some cover there? Because at the moment we don't have anything to back us up.
Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I think the points have been made earlier by Councillor Winch regarding benchmarking, for example. I think that's that's taking us some of the way there, and we have had a general peer review of this council a couple of years ago, I think it was, and a specific review of our planning processes department. I expect a review of our financial operations is a peer review. If that is something that we could get through the Local Government Association. I haven't any details It's as if officers are making a note over there of something they might want to say.
As part of the quarterly reports that we have from Arlene Close, there is benchmarking information in there as well to show how we're performing against other councils. So I think it might be helpful if we read some of that into the report or mention that at Joint Audit and Standards Committee. But certainly take on board sort of how we do that peer review and making sure we're getting, you know, solid advice, so we can look at that when we do the tender.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, in that case, we will now move to the debate. Councillors will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Would anybody like to make a comment or a statement? No? Okay. Councillor Winch.
Yeah, very quickly. So thanks to officers for getting this report up to date. 2 little observations. I'd like to see the impact of interest rate rises a bit more visible in the report. I know somewhere it says 90k per 1%, but if we could have the calculation for that a bit clearer and a bit more prominent, because that could become an issue longer term. The other thing, Councillor Whitehead's question about what happens to that particular sum, it would be good if there was a bit more forward visibility, not just of a specific payment, but there's things going on in the General Fund and the HRA that impact the Treasury management side going forward. And it'd be useful, I think, to see what's coming down the line, not always looking back. And I don't know whether there could be some kind of appendix that gave a bit more visibility for that.
Thank you, Councillor Winch. Councillor Whitehead? Debating, yes. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, several members have spoken about Arlene Close and benchmarking and advice. And I think it's important to point out, as someone who's been here for quite a while, that it wasn't councillors past or present, or it wasn't officers past or present that selected Schroders or 91. It was very much Arlene Close's recommendation as Treasury experts that have turned the 2 million into 1.7 or 2 million to 1.8, or for the UBS 2 million down to 1.5. So it is a concern. I've got in front of me here a paper, council paper from late 2021, and it reads that while Arlene Close also advises in terms of borrowing and investing, while Arlene Close didn't believe base bank rate will rise, it's by a lesser extent than expected by markets. And there's a table of Arlene Close forecast rates. At the time, base rate was 0.1%, and they were forecasting for December 24 base rate of 0.5%, upside risk of 0.25%, so in other words, upside risk of it being 0.75%, and a downside risk of 0.4%. So the downside, it could have been 0.1. So somewhere they were advising us it would be in the range of 0.1 to 0.75%, whereas it isn't presently, I think, is it 4.25% or 4.75%? I forget now, but it's way out. So I think it's important that we do look to benchmark Arlene Close and to evaluate them going forward in terms of procurement.
Thank you. Councillor Masson, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think there's been some very useful points from all sides on both these papers, and very much thank you for those. I just did want to pop in an advertisement that on January the 13th, subject to confirmation, but almost certainly, we will be running a Treasury training half day, which I invite everybody to attend and learn more about how the council's finances work. Okay? More about that soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the Acting Head of Governance and the Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Please note that you are voting for recommendations 3.1 and 3.3 in the report. Councillor Carter, may I take your vote verbally or? Oh, sorry, it's just come in. Thank you. Thank you, members. That's 31 votes for, so that's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. So the time is now 10 to 7. I was planning to adjourn the meeting for a short 10-minute break at 7 o'clock, but the next two items may take a little longer than that, of course. So I would like to adjourn the meeting now. We have a 10-minute break and we come back here for 7 o'clock. Thank you. Suffolk Housing Supplementary Planning Document for adoption. It gives me pleasure to invite Councillor Stringer, Cabinet Member for Heritage Planning and Infrastructure, to introduce paper MC 2428 and move the recommendations in the report and table papers.
Thank you, Chairman. Guiding development through the planning system and ensuring that housing needs are met is one of the most important duties of this council. If we're going to create places where people can live healthy and secure lives, where everyone can thrive and have a chance to play a full role in their communities, we need to ensure that we are delivering the right homes. To that end, I'm pleased to recommend the adoption of this housing supplementary planning document for use in determining planning applications in our district. Members will be aware that a supplementary planning document, or SPD, is used in planning decision-making to provide guidance on the way in which the policies of the adopted Baber and Mid-Suffolk Joint Local Plan are to be interpreted. This SPD focuses on the housing policies in the Joint Local Plan and will help us to consider the most appropriate housing mixes for the sites coming forward in the district, how we can best secure truly affordable housing, how we can use our positive planning policies to help communities deliver their own homegrown housing proposals, also proposals for self-build development and demand for custom and self-build projects, financial contributions towards off-site affordable housing provision, and many other matters of technical detail set out in the document before you. This document was subject to a public consultation between May and June this year, and amendments were made to the document as a result of this process. Members will be able to see the details of these comments made by 16 respondents and the resulting changes in the documents appended to this report within your papers. In addition to the published papers, I'd like to introduce one further recommendation, 3.2, which is in your additional papers today, that the Head of Strategic Planning, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Heritage Planning and Infrastructure, be authorised to make any consequential amendments to the document for adoption arising from removal of drafting and technical errors and typing mistakes and improvements to the layout of the document. This will enable officers to tidy up any typing errors spotted in the documents. Officers are available here to answer any questions on this document this evening, and I'm sure, like me, members here this evening are committed to the delivery of the right homes in the right places. This SPD will help us to deliver on that commitment, so I recommend the adoption of this SPD in line with the recommendation 3.1 and the additional recommendation 3.2. I'd also like to thank you, as ever, thanks to all the staff in the preparation of this document, and I'd ask for a second to chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stringer. Councillor Mansell, would you like to second?
Yes, I'd like to second this motion, thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move to questions. Councillors may ask as many questions as they wish. However, they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question and not be of a personal or commercial nature. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Chair. Page 125, which is actually the introduction to the paper, describes the annual local housing need target for Mid-Suffolk as 535. Is that not now superseded by another figure? And if it is, why is this the figure in the paper?
Thank you. Councillor Stringer.
Chair, I think the answer is no, because we have the number enshrined in JLP Part 1. But if that's incorrect or needs any nuancing, I'll pass over to Robert. Is that okay? Fine, okay. That's your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Hobbs? Or Robert, sorry. Oh, we didn't need to add anything. My apologies. Would anybody else like to ask a question? Okay. In that case, we will now move to the debate. Councillors will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Anyone want to debate this? Councillor Caston.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, really pleased with how this document's turned out. It's well written. There's a lot of information in there, and it's clear, and it makes a lot of sense. It's going to be really useful for this going forward for the planning committee and planning in general, having all this information down here. I did want to draw attention to the rural worker dwelling part of it, which is maybe a little bit woolly for my liking, because we do have these applications come up, and quite often they'll go to appeal if we refuse them. It would be good to have something there for when this type of development's asked for, a criteria, so people can really understand what they've got to have in place to get this approved. It does have a line in there where it says they have to prove that the business will remain financially viable, which in farming, which is obviously the main thing, is a really difficult thing to prove. As I've found when I've tried to get a mortgage, farming has to be looked at completely differently to a lot of other businesses, where profit is dropping 3 years in a row. That's seen by a lot of in a lot of places as a business that's slowly going under. But in farming, it's not at all. It's you might get the next year where you suddenly exceed all that profit. But no, really, really good document, really useful. Really pleased that we've got it in the chamber now, and I'll be happy to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caston. Some really interesting and valuable insights there. Would anybody else like to make a comment or talk? Councillor Mansell.
Well, I'd just like to comment that yes, I too welcome having the supplementary planning documents. I think they will offer clarity to applicants, and it'd be really useful for determination of planning decisions, both officers' delegated decisions and our own. And it's also good to have the document out there so that any developers have got a better idea of what exactly we're looking for, so that we really do make a better effort at getting our right homes in the right places. So yeah, I welcome this new document, and look forward to more of the supplementary planning documents coming forward. And again, I'd like to thank the officers for their time preparing this document, and hope it helps. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Stringer, would you like to add anything?
Briefly, if I may, thank you for the responses to the document. Like I say, and I thank the staff earlier for their work on it. It's a very clear document, as it needs to be, because we've put our planning committee through a lot of changes since we've taken over, and actually, I'd like to thank the planning committee as well for the work you've done to date. You know, the sound decisions you're coming to are you know, proving sound as we go forward. Long may that continue, and this will be another part of your toolbox to be able to help you come to those good decisions on behalf of our community. So yeah, with that, I'll wind up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Offices to conduct this electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Carter? 4. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Morgan, you are voting for, is that correct? Thank you. Councillor Bradbury, have you voted? It's a vote for, presumably. Yes, thank you. Okay, so that's 31 votes for, Chair, so that's unanimous.
Thank you, that is carried. Item 12, the Baber and Mid-Suffolk Intensive Livestock and Poultry Farming Supplementary Planning Document for adoption. I would again like to invite Councillor Stringer, Cabinet Member for Heritage, Planning and Infrastructure, to introduce paper MC 2429 and to move the recommendations in the report and the table papers, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Seconds away, round two. Intensive Livestock and Poultry Supplementary Planning Document. Policy LP14 in the adopted Baber and Mid-Suffolk Joint Local Plan sets out a framework for the consideration of intensive livestock and poultry unit proposals in the district. The policy seeks to support this specific agricultural sector wherever it is considered appropriate, whilst ensuring significant consideration is given to the environmental protection as well as the well-being of people. This supplementary planning document provides detailed information and guidance for assessing the impacts on these intensive livestock and poultry unit proposals to ensure that matters can be considered early on in the planning application process. For example, impacts on residential amenity, environmental receptors, water, landscape and the highway network. The document was subject to public consultation between May and June of this year, and as with the housing SPD, amendments were made to the document as a result of this process. Members will be able to see the details of these comments made and resulting changes in the documents appended to this report within your papers. I'm pleased to recommend the adoption of the Intensive Livestock and Poultry Supplementary Planning Document for use in determining planning applications in the district. In addition to the published papers, I would again like to introduce one further recommendation of 3.2, that the Head of Strategic Planning, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Heritage, Planning and Infrastructure, be authorised to make any subsequent amendments to the document for adoption arising from particular removal of drafting and technical errors and typing mistakes and improvements to the layout of the document. This will enable officers to tidy up any typing errors spotted in the documents. Officers are available here to help answer any of the questions on this document this evening. This supplementary document will help ensure that the planning policies of Baber and Mid-Suffolk Joint Local Plan are effectively implemented. So once again, I recommend the adoption of this SPD in line with recommendation 3.1 and the additional recommendation 3.2, and I ask for a seconder, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stringer. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mansell.
Thank you. I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to questions. Councillors may ask as many questions as they wish, however, they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question. Who would like to ask a question? Councillor Linders.
Yes, I would like to ask 4 interconnected questions, all to do with extraction of water from rivers. And it relates to page 295, where the River Waveney Trust forwarded their comments, and there was a response from officers as well. So my first question in this regard would be, how much water is gotten back into the river after it has been processed by a plant? If X liters is extracted from a river, how many are Y liters getting back to the river at the end of the process? Do we have a rough estimate of that? That would be very valuable, I think. And another question related to this is, when the water has been passed through the processing plants after usage in the factory or plant or whatever you call it, how do we monitor the quality of the water that is put back into the river? And also, are there criteria for the quality of the water in various ways? And fourthly, if those criteria, if there are criteria, which I assume there must be, what would happen to the user of the water if the criteria were not met? Would there be sanctions or not? Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Very good questions indeed. Councillor Stringer.
Yeah, and thank you, Councillor Linda, for your questions. Not wishing to give you a politician's answer, but all conditions that are put on planning applications needs to be reasonable and enforceable. So if we're looking at determining a planning application for this, the technical information you're looking for should be drawn out through the consultation process, and then any conditions that are needed to make sure that we are adhering to those criteria would be up to the planning officer or the planning committee or subsequent appeal officer to look at if that was the case. So it would be basically tailored to each proposal depending what that proposal was. Does that help?
Councillor Linders, would you stand up, please?
Sorry. Yes. No, I was wondering also if the owner of the factory or processing plant does not meet the requirements as per the application, would that plant be sanctioned after that?
Through the planning process, there is highly likely there would be conditions, and there are obviously sanctions for breaching conditions. But also we have to be careful we don't duplicate legislation, and there is other legislation about polluting rivers and stuff and watercourses that would also, we need to make sure we don't duplicate, but would also be used to be enforced if that were the case.
Thank you, Councillor Stringer.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to ask a question? If there are no further questions, then I would like to move us on to the debates. Councillors will be allowed to speak just once for 3 minutes. Would anybody like to debate? Would someone like to? Yes. Thank you. Alethea? Councillor Mansell.
In the absence of anybody else having anything to say on this matter, I thought I'd better pop up and say something. I'll try not to repeat what I said about the other supplementary planning document, but I do welcome this. I think it lays out clearly and relatively concisely all the factors that are needed to be considered for an application of this nature, and hopefully it will enable that all the relevant information can be collated well before any such application comes to committee, because very often, well not very often, but occasionally we do find cases that come to committee and members of the committee are asking questions about residential amenity, about odour, about noise, all these things, and this document hopefully will help applicants make sure that all the information is ready there at the beginning of the process, and we don't then have to repeatedly ask for more information, which seems to delay matters. So I think this is great, and again I'd like to thank the officers for putting it together, and look forward to it being part of our repertoire of planning documents to help us make good decisions. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Councillor Hicks, did you have anything to say and add? Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this paper. It is a topic of much discussion in many of my villages around the large number of sheds that have appeared, particularly since Cranswick's appeared in the scene. So I think this really helps. What I would just ask is, obviously it's a fine balance, because we want to support our farmers who want to grow and have to diversify, versus the residents who see the concerns, the worries, the traffic, the flies, and all the other things that come around. So can I just ask that, of course I support this, but can we just review it on a regular basis to see if actually there's anything in here we've put that's over onerous going forward, or actually something we've missed that should be in here that we haven't done. So if we can just keep that sort of constant review, I think that'd be helpful, because it is a new piece of work in the sense that it's going to, first time there's something so clearly laid out that people can follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hicks. Councillor Caston.
Thank you very much, Chair. I do want to speak on this, but spending most of my farming career as a poultry farmer. This is a real serious business that we're looking at here. It's absolutely crucial for this country to food security, and also for animal welfare. Our welfare standards, even in the intensive units, are much higher than a lot of the imported food coming in. It's I've read through this. There's not any part of this as a chicken farmer that I disagree with. I think it's really well balanced. It's not good for businesses if they and for residents when these things go in the wrong place and they're done badly, and they don't, like for instance the pest management, the flies. Flies are a terrible nuisance when they're not managed properly. I'm pleased to see that the parasitic wasps make an appearance in there. I was one of the first people in the area to start using parasitic wasps to control flies. It is ever so difficult, but no, I just, for me, I think this is a really well balanced piece of work. There's nothing in there, I think, that's over-egged, that's too much for a poultry unit to take into account. A lot of these things will be looked after by the assurance that the company that buy the meat or eggs or whatever will expect from the farmer. So we're not asking them to do anything that's not what they're going to be asked to do anyway. But yes, fully support this, and we'll be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to go back to Councillor Stringer's comments about not duplicating the policies, regulatory regimes of other organisations, and express a caution, a concern that the Environment Agency, which is very much one such organisation that we try to work with and not overlap, doesn't really have the resources to do its job. And so, not that I'll be wanting to vote against this paper or anything, but I do think we should just flag that up as a very real concern. When one tries as a ward member to deal with something and referred on by our planning officers and enforcement officers to Environment Agency, it's very difficult to get things done. So I just wanted to make that caution.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carter. Oh, you didn't. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that it's really welcome that this SPD allows the cumulative impact of intensive farming on water to be considered through our local plan. Elsewhere in the UK, the condition of, for example, the River Wye has been downgraded to unfavourable, in large part because of this cumulative impact and the rapid expansion of intensive agriculture. And we know that rivers here in mid-Suffolk are under quite considerable pressure as well, and intensive farming is expanding. And so we've got the opportunity here to try something new and to do something better. We have farmers sitting on both sides of this room, and we know that farmers care deeply about environmental stewardship, and they don't want to be having those kinds of damaging impacts. So I hope that nationally more funding will be made available to help farmers make the transition to more river-friendly farming through things like the Sustainable Farming Incentive. And I think it's very welcome that this SPD means that we can actually consider these cumulative impacts as part of our local planning process, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elkin. Councillor Mellon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome this paper, and I will be clearly voting for it. Having spent a substantial part of my career in the farming industry, I'm aware that there's a range of different practices. Some farmers are very, very aware of the need to care for livestock and to deal with the environment carefully. But we know that farming and food production is the number one impact on the planetary system, and we need to mitigate that. So it's really helpful, I think, to have this document. There's some kind of clarity in the planning process when we are dealing with planning applications relating to intensive livestock production. And it's certainly at a time when there's a huge amount of uncertainty for our farmers. We want them to have the clarity from us, at least, where they might get uncertainty elsewhere. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Walters.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to echo Councillor Mellon's comments. This is a difficult one for me because it does, ideologically, it's a difficult one for me. But equally, you know, when we're thinking of the environment and we're thinking of animal welfare, I understand why it's been brought, and I do commend it for that purpose. I just want to go on record and say that the highly sentient beings that are pigs and cows, when we refer to 2,000 in a unit and 750 in a unit, you know, and the fact that this intensive farming does need to go on, I accept that. My choice is that I don't engage personally in the product that produces, but I do accept that, you know, the vast majority of people do. So I welcome the paper. I will support it, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Stringer, do you wish to add anything?
Thank you, Chair. I was expecting a little debate on this, but actually I'm really impressed with the knowledge in the room for starters. The knowledge in the room for someone that's been working in that sector is really helpful. You mentioned fly nuisance and how to control it. We have that expertise also on the benches opposite, and I won't mention it because it would be an advertisement, and we might have to declare an interest. But equally, we have an entomologist behind us, which can tell you which type of wasp that you need to control the flies. So, I mean, the expertise in this chamber is absolutely remarkable. But this is an incredibly serious issue. If you get this kind of development right, hardly anyone notices. If you get this wrong, by goodness, a community knows. And we're also operating now in an environment where parts of our district is under water stress. We're at the edges of what our geology can deliver in this sector. So we have to get these planning applications right in determining them. So the more we can put up front to tell the proposer or a developer, potential developer, here's what we'll expect from you in terms of what we're going to be asking questions about and the answers we're going to need, I think that's better for everybody. I know of an application we had that was, I think it was in my ward, but on the edge of Councillor Elkin's ward as well, where a farmer, in all honesty, put in an application he thought would be okay, but wasn't found to be okay because of an odour issue on an industrial process next door to it. And it did go to appeal, and it got refused at appeal. That cost that developer an awful lot of money that they could have invested in more kit, more stuff, and actually, you know, invested in the longevity of their farm. So getting all this stuff up front as much as possible is doing everyone in the process a service. So I gladly and thank you for all the comments during the debate today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stringer. I would also like to echo thanks to all members who have contributed to the debate. I will now ask the Acting Head of Governance in the Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress. Thank you. Thank you, members. That's 30 votes for, so that's carried. Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 13, draft timetable of meetings for 2025-26. I would like to invite Councillor Mellon, Leader of the Council, to introduce paper MC 2430 and to remove the recommendations in the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This paper has been tabled. This is the timetable for meetings for the municipal year starting next May, 25-26, in Appendix A. and the recommendations are that the draft committee timetable be approved, and 2.2 that the Chief Executive calls the meetings in accordance with the agreed timetable unless there is insufficient business for the meeting to go ahead. And I'd just like to point out that I think we do have, as good practice, when there isn't much business, that the Chair and the Chief Exec do consult all groups in the Council, and we don't just make a unilateral decision about cancelling that. So I think that's good practice. But I would like to move these recommendations and call for a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mansell, would you like to second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay. Should we go straight to the votes? I will ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote, please. Oh, Councillor Lawrence, apologies, didn't see your hand up. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question, it's more for a debate part, or just a comment, really. Having sitting on both the Planning Committee for Mid Suffolk and obviously on the Council here, I note, like this week, we've got on the most of the calendar, we've got a combination of the planning meeting followed the next day by the Town Council meeting. This is quite a significant amount of work. It's 400 pages yesterday, 320 today on consecutive days to do adequate preparation. I'm lucky, I'm retired, but I'm still overworked. There are obviously other members that are fully employed. So I'd ask for 2006, 2007, some thought be given to separating the Mid-Suffolk Planning Committee meetings a bit further away from the Council meeting. But I will be supporting this timetable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lawrence. Since we're not really doing a debate on, we're not having a debate on this, I will just ask that those are noted and perhaps taken away, if you like.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Lawrence, thank you for that suggestion. And I think it is right to note the fact that you know, we are not full-time employees of the council. We are, in a sense, volunteers giving up substantial amounts of time. So we'll have a look at that suggestion and try and separate out the meetings for the next municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Carter, may I take your vote, please? For, thank you. Thank you, members. That's 30 votes for, so that's carried, Chair.
Thank you. Item 14, Councillor appointments. The appointments are listed on the agenda and in the tabled papers. Are there any further changes to appointments? Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'd like to add that Councillor Miles Rowe is going to be appointed to the Joint Audit and Standards Committee with the consent of the Council.
Thank you very much. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mellon. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Hardingham. I will now ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, members. That vote has been updated and is now in progress. Sorry, Councillor Carter, may I take your vote? Thank you. Thank you, members. That's 30 votes for. Chair, that's carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the motions on notice. To consider the motion on notice received from Councillor Mellon. Councillor Mellon, would you like to move your motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Now, we're still technically in autumn, but this last week we've seen the temperature plummet. There's snow on the ground in parts of Norfolk, and we're getting our first taste of wintry weather. So it's quite appropriate that we have this motion at Council today. Just as many older and vulnerable people across the district will be wondering how they will keep warm this winter. The new Labour government's decision to remove winter fuel payments from around 85% of pensioners is perplexing. Yes, of course, there are some pensioners who are well off and can manage without it, and some will still get it if they are on pension credit. But the move from a universal benefit to a means-tested one always creates a cliff edge, a point at which someone in just slightly better circumstances misses out on the payment. And we also know that there are residents out there who could get the winter fuel payment but aren't currently. So I welcome the fact that our officers working with Mid-Suffolk Citizens Advice are reaching out in a targeted way to those who may qualify but haven't yet applied. Of course, it goes without saying that the withdrawal of winter fuel payments did not feature in the Labour manifesto, nor, as far as I know, has the government published any kind of impact assessment on the change. So we're saying that if this motion is agreed by the Council, we will write to the Chancellor asking her to review that decision and to make public any impact assessment. But I think we need to go beyond emergency payments and deal with the underlying problem, which is that Britain's homes are not up to standard. Our housing stock is the leakiest and draftiest in Europe, and we're not even building new homes to the highest standards. And our older homes are in need of retrofitting. So the second ask of government is that we need a comprehensive long-term programme to support retrofit. And we're talking here about insulation, draft-proofing, improved windows and doors, and more. And the unfortunate thing is that support schemes for this in the past have come and gone. The Green Deal opened in 2012 and closed in 2015. The Green Homes Grant Voucher Scheme was announced in 2020 and closed in 2021. We do have something now called the Home Upgrade Grant, and that funding is welcome, but it comes in waves and is not always available. So this is where a long-term, consistent approach is needed, and of course it would bring multiple benefits. Warmer homes, better health, lower bills, and of course reduced carbon emissions too. So while we wait for the government to respond to our request, the good news for Mid-Suffolk residents is that your council has a scheme in place which can help now. Cosy Homes has been relaunched for this winter. It provides free insulation and other energy-saving measures to qualifying households, and I'd be grateful if all members could publicise this in your communities and parishes. Of course, I'm happy to acknowledge that the £2 million of funding from the Council reserves was set aside for this purpose under the previous administration. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. But it is this Green administration that's delivering the programme and helping to keep vulnerable residents warm this winter. Lastly, we know we need to move away from fossil fuel usage to warm our homes. Much of our district does not have access to mains gas, so people have oil boilers or they use solid fuel or maybe expensive electric heating. And it's becoming clear that a combination of tried and tested technologies can combine to provide warm homes and lower bills. Solar panels, battery backup and a heat pump can be a very effective combination. So effective that, in fact, Octopus Energy is offering zero bills for 10 years on some homes in Mid-Suffolk fitted with those technologies. And of course, the right technology needs to be fitted to the right home. There should not be a blanket one-size-fits-all approach. But I'd just say this technology is here and it's working now, and we should welcome it. And I'm so confident about it that I've actually had a heat pump fitted in my house this week, and I'm looking forward to a warm house when I go home tonight. So to sum up, this motion calls on the government to think about its poor decision on winter fuel payments. But it also points to the longer-term solutions to the problem of keeping people warm, and I ask for your support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mellon. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lay?
Thank you, Chair.
On second this motion, I found myself contemplating deeply about the message I might convey. Should I draw attention to the pressing concerns of the elderly individuals I encounter weekly through my charity role at Red Gables and Stowmarket? Or should I reference Age UK's alarming statistic that suggests up to 2 million pensioners who depend on this allowance to remain warm during the winter will be denied it this year? Perhaps it would have been most poignant to share the personal impact reflected in my own mother's situation, who will also no longer receive this vital support. This issue transcends individual anecdotes. It is a critical lifeline for countless seniors struggling to maintain adequate heating during the harshest months of winter. Limiting access to such assistance inevitably plunges many pensioners into financial distress. To put things into perspective, our State of the District report indicates that 25.3% of residents in Mid-Suffolk are aged over 65, a figure that exceeds the national average by approximately 7%. Projections suggest that this demographics could constitute nearly a third of our population within the next 2 decades. Certain wards, including Bacton, Bramford and Stradbroke, are already approaching these figures. Therefore, it is imperative that we understand that these changes will have a profound impact on many of our senior residents here in Mid-Suffolk. Councillor Mellon is absolutely right to draw attention to the reliance on fossil fuels in residential heating. In Mid-Suffolk, approximately 30% of households depend on their oil for their heating needs, and this can pose significant challenges for lower income families due to the substantial initial investment required for purchasing heating oil. In Councillor Mellon's ward specifically, an alarming 63% of homes rely on oil as their primary source of heat. While there has been a recent decline in prices, it is important to note that the current market cost remains double what it was 4 years ago. It is essential to recognise that those who use oil aren't the only ones facing hardship. An anticipated rise in the energy price cap combined with ongoing global issues can exacerbate financial concerns across all households. It is imperative that we take proactive measures to support our residents in managing these escalating costs. Therefore, I wholeheartedly support Councillor Mellon's emphasis on the Cosy Homes scheme. This initiative serves as a practical solution that transcends climate change debates. Regardless of one's stance on environmental issues, I'm sure we can all agree that anyone can appreciate and benefit from living in a well-insulated home. Very happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lay. We will now move to the debates. Councillors will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Would anybody like to debate? Yes, Councillor Scarf.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Certainly be supporting this. I think it's a good motion. I wonder whether the Chancellor would actually take any notice, but that doesn't stop us writing in the first place, does it? And I think it's right that we do on behalf of our residents. Would the Council consider, as part of that letter to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, actually simplifying the system or asking for a simplification of the system? Because many people don't claim pension credit, many people don't know that they're entitled to it, many people avoid claiming it because the form is incredibly long and it asks a lot of questions. And I think it's not really beyond the wit of the government in a very wealthy country, even though we hear it's not, to devise a scheme where people who are actually eligible for pension credit actually receive it automatically. Is it? It also, I think, affects a lot of people who are just above the limit for pension credit, and perhaps more so. They can be £50 above the limit for pension credit and receive nothing at all. Many people who are disabled and rely on extra heating to manage their home environment are also affected. And one could say, well, many of them get personal independence payment, but that is another payment that is incredibly difficult to get, is always challenged by CA and successfully usually in about 75% of cases when they're turned down. So the whole system is extremely complex. One of the things I would like the council to consider doing, and I don't think we actually do enough of it, we send out once a year our council tax bill to every household. Why can we not send out with that council tax bill some extra literature on topical subjects such as this? I appreciate it will be after the winter, but there are many examples, and I think we could do more by sending to every household some general information about the kinds of schemes. We could include the warm Cozy Home scheme, etc., etc. And I think we should really take every effort to maximise the publicity and the advertising for this with our actual electors and residents.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Are you, just for clarification, are you proposing an amendment, or is it just really for noting?
I think it's for noting. I mean, if the leader, when they compose their letter, or the chair, when they compose the letter, actually potentially include those, I don't think anyone would probably object to that.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to debate? Councillor Matheson?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, very briefly. It's encouraging, but also worrying that the applications are flooding in from people to get pension credit in order to qualify themselves, and a backlog of processing of that has built up, which is a worry. But the main thing I wanted to ask really is when Councillor Mellon drafts the letter to government, that particularly the one that asks them to bring in a scheme, etc., is to come up with a scheme that works. Because I remember a long time ago now being on a regional housing forum as a councillor, and people were saying round the room, and the third sector was in there, and officers and councillors alike, that this Green Deal scheme won't work. 8% interest won't work, it won't fly. And sure enough, it didn't fly. So in our letter, to plead that they come up with a scheme, they test a scheme, and then put it in refined to be sure that it works, actually to deliver the actual retrofitting that we desperately need. And Lord knows, in 2012, I think it was, what I'm talking about, we were saying to then, look, retrofitting the existing stock's the most important thing of all. Well, here we are a lot years later, and we're asking for it even more. And I think to the same point, really, I know that we are striving and will continue to strive to make our schemes that actually work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carter.
Thank you. Yes, I certainly am in full support of this motion. Yes, there will be a large proportion of pensioners who are quite financially stable, well off, who may not need this credit. Yet, when you look at the reported, there are approximately 22.7 billion pounds of unclaimed benefit a year. And it's not just from pensioners or people actually who will not claim these benefits because, as the Deputy Chair has alluded to, the forms are complicated. There's some sense of pride. If you're looking at elderly individuals as well who may not have the capability of doing the forms alone, if you have a social isolation, might not have family and help, it make it difficult for them to claim benefits. So if they haven't got benefits in place, they're not going to be able to have a warm homes. So you have to think what people are falling through the gaps. So having this motion is helping secure and to help them to, it's not changing things now, but it's aiming to help and to improve. You also alluding to the motion regarding the improving housing stocks. Well, that's not just helping pensioners, it's helping everybody. It helps for families where we have people in impoverished homes with mould, with respiratory issues. Improving housing stock is actually going to benefit families and everyone who should be healthier and live longer. It's something that's been known for decades and just not acted upon. So we need to act now to improve ourselves, to improve the housing stock, and to look out to secure that, make sure that people aren't being falling through the gaps. And this motion it helps towards it, and noting that we at Council we do care, and we are trying to do things now to help with those surrounding our area. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you. I'm just rereading the motion, and I just want, maybe I want a little bit of clarity. I will be supporting the motion. I like the idea of number 1 and number 2, and number 3 is about our own cosy home scheme. But maybe number 4 is just not really strong enough. All it actually says is that we as a council resolve to welcome wider use of new technologies, which will enable individual households' energy bills to be less. But we're doing that anyway. Of course we welcome it. But there's nothing in here about encouraging the government to push more with the new technology. We currently have building regs that are so far out of date, and they take so long. It's a hysteresis of trouble, because the building regs are already sort of 4 years, the tech is 4 years old, and nothing seems to be done about that. And I would actually really like us to be doing something in number 2 and tell the government to pull their finger out and make sure, as well as retrofitting all the old stock, make sure that the new stock that we're building today has got today's technology in and not 5-year-old technology, because tech is moving so fast. And I just think number 4 perhaps could be a little bit stronger, but I will be supporting it anyway. But again, this is just for maybe the leader and the chair, whoever composing the letter, to maybe word that a little bit stronger, that we need to be doing more to make sure that our new housing stock, as well as our old housing stock, is making use of best technology of today and not yesterday. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understand that councils up and down the country are discussing similar motions condemning this cruel and heartless withdrawal of winter fuel payment by the Labour government from all but the poorest pensioners. I was appalled when I first heard this miserable announcement, and I hope this motion will be fully supported by all in the chamber this evening. The withdrawal of winter fuel payments is just one of an increasing number of bizarre decisions made by this new government. Their approach to all things seems to be, if it ain't broke, then break it. My only concern with this otherwise excellent motion relates to Resolution 2 and 3. The BBC reported on the 18th of November this year that many lenders were now refusing to give mortgages on homes that have been installed with spray foam insulation under the previous government's Green Home Grant Scheme. Up to 250,000 homes may be affected, with stories of people now unable to sell their homes until they fork out thousands of pounds to have that foam insulation removed. Retrofitted foam insulation can leave moisture trapped and roost timbers at risk of decay. Our Cosy Home programme could have the same unintended consequences, as older homes were designed and built for fresh air to circulate to prevent trapped moisture, mould and decay. We have a duty of care to our residents to learn from these past failures and not repeat them. But despite this concern regarding the Resolutions 2 and 3, I fully support the general principle behind the motion. Ideally, I would prefer to see the motion strengthened so that under Resolution 1, we ask the Chancellor to reverse the decision rather than review the decision. That's just a single word change. So I'd like to move an amendment to that effect, that the word review in Resolution 1 be changed to reverse. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mellon, would you be willing to accept the amendment?
Yes, I'm happy to accept that one-word change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to make a few points in support of this motion this evening. I similarly strongly object to the government's new policy and welcome the opportunity for this council to express its collective opposition as well. If I just refer briefly to one of the things that Councillor Mellon referenced in his opening remarks, the government did in fact publish their impact assessment earlier this week on the withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance from a great number of pensioners, and it confirmed that 100,000 additional pensioners will now move into relative fuel poverty as a result, a direct result of these changes, which of course, given where we find ourselves with the weather just outside this chamber, will affect a lot of people very, very quickly. And that's not just in terms of the loss of that particular payment, if they are now no longer eligible. For those who are just on the cusp of that threshold, that will mean that many in our district will now face a choice between heating and eating in the next few weeks. And I think it's important that we condemn that in the strongest possible terms. Heartless and cruel, Councillor Whitehead has already said, and I would echo that entirely. It's not just around those physical and immediate decisions, of course. It's also about the anxiety and the concern that that will instill in some of our residents in the coming weeks as they are confronted with that choice. And finally, yes, I agree we can probably strengthen some of the wording in the motion here or there, but I think it really is incumbent on all of us to encourage our residents, wherever we find them, to apply for pension credit and to assist them if they are eligible for it. I mean, I think I've read some analysis of this decision that has said that if every single pensioner who applies for pension credit who is eligible does so, that will more than offset the cost of the cut to the winter fuel allowance. So incredulous is this policy. And I suggest that we support our residents for purely their own benefit, not because of any fiscal impact that the government may face as a result. So in conclusion, yes, I'm very happy to support this motion. I'll be voting in favour of it this evening. And yes, of course, I take the point that was made, I think, by Councillor Scarf at the beginning. Yes, the Chancellor may just ignore it, but hopefully if there are enough local authorities who are dealing with the immediate impact of these residents, they will change their mind. So I'll be definitely voting in favour of this motion this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richardson. Would anybody else like to add anything? Councillor Stringer?
Thank you, Chair. I won't take too long. Yeah, I thank you for bringing the motion, and thank you for getting the wording right so it could include everyone in this chamber. And I thank those opposite for suggesting amendments to try and find unanimity, because this motion is in the realm of being political, but the more you can depoliticise this kind of issue, I think, the better we all are. I'd like to pay thanks to our council for doing the right thing and trying to reach out to those people that they feel can be helped. That's a brilliant use of resource to get together with those agencies to try and get to those people urgently so that they can get the help that's due to them. It's all the more needed now. You mentioned about getting the right advice of what insulation you put in homes. It's utterly vital. And that's why we're standing in a chamber that yesterday approved Skills and Innovation Centre to be built in Mid-Suffolk, where we could be training those people in the future to make sure the right insulation is put in the right houses with the right technologies. Even more so about getting the schemes doable. Another council that shares this chamber is about to give £5 million back to the government that it couldn't spend on insulating people's homes. That's frankly a scandal. But it was because of the issues that wrapped around that meant it was very difficult to implement. Which all the more reason we need to stream people to the schemes that we have still got going here at this council. So I will be voting in favour of this. And I hope we do get a unanimous response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stringer. Councillor Caston?
Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank the leader for mentioning the Octopus Zero Energy Bill Holmes, which is, I don't know if there's any more in the district, but Brantford, my ward, has a few of them, delivered by Hopkins Homes, which I haven't always spoken very highly of in this chamber, but tonight I will. Yeah, fully support this motion, support the amendment. The elderly are very resilient. They're very tough. They don't ask for help, and they very often, and quite often, conditions can get terrible before anyone realises. You know, they suffer in silence. We're so badly placed in mid-Suffolk with our demographic and with the isolation of a lot of our areas and the types of homes we have. We've got this cosy homes. We really need to make sure that's delivered to the people that really need it. It's gonna make a big difference, but these aren't the sort of people that look to fill out forms, look to draw attention to themselves and ask for help. And we need to do that the best we can. We need to find a way of getting that to them. But yeah, really happy to support this motion, and thank you for bringing it.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak? Okay, I will now then ask the Acting Head of Governance in the Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote. Oh, sorry, apologies. Councillor Mellon, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure members will have heard this before, but the cheapest unit of electricity is the one that you don't use. Energy conservation is the often forgotten key piece of the jigsaw, insulating our homes, improving their heat retention, stopping up drafts, upgrading doors and windows when possible. All these bring considerable benefits. So I'm very pleased that our Cosy Homes scheme is contributing to this in a small way as resources allow, but we do need that comprehensive national effort as requested in the motion. I have actually seen that there's a government announcement today under the Warm Homes Plan. I'm not sure of the detail of it yet, but maybe that's a response to our motion. Yeah, so maybe the government is listening. I certainly hope so. But if the council agrees to support this, I will write to the Chancellor, and I will include Councillor Scarf's important point about simplification of the application process for benefits. And I can reassure him that we do have plans to get that kind of information he suggested into people's homes. I also agree with Councillor Matheson and Councillor Carter that we need a scheme that works and is simple in operation. I thank Councillor Mansell for her supportive comments, and I'm aware of that concern about spray foam insulation that was raised, and I can confirm that it's not something we're doing as part of the Cosy Homes scheme. Thank you also to Councillor Richardson for highlighting the impact assessment, which has now been published. I just noted that is on the BBC. Thank you. So thank you for all contributions to the debate, including the amendment from Councillor Whitehead, which toughened up a bit. And I look forward to your support in the vote. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the Acting Head of Governance and the Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Member. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Carter, may I take your vote, please?
4, please.
Thank you. Councillor Mansell, may I just ask you to check your vote, please? We got as abstain. Yes. Okay, that's fine. We're just double checking. Thank you very much. Councillor Morgan, may I take your vote for? It's 4. Thank you. Thank you, members. That's 29 votes for and 1 abstention.
Thank you. That is carried. I would just like to thank the council and its members, for the general contributions to the debates. It's great to hear such consensus across, the different political parties, and I feel like it's been a really positive meeting this evening. Just please note that the next meeting is on Thursday, the 23rd of January 2025 at 5:30 p.m. and I declare this meeting closed at 7 minutes past 8.